Hi, this is Denise, and this is the Earth Angel Goddess channel. We discuss everything related to moving humanity forward. Today we're going to discuss kids with behavior issues. Now, do people that work with children, such as teachers, mental health professionals, paras, lunch ladies, principals, administrative staff, social services, law enforcement, in-home providers, family therapists, family skills, parenting, teachers, all sorts of stuff. How do you see kids with behavior issues? I have a lot of experience working with kids with behavior issues for a long time, okay? So depending on what adults see in a kid that has behavior issues, that's going to determine how that kid responds to them, and it's going to determine how the kid heals and can make strides in improving their behaviors, okay? So do people that work with children or hang around children that have behavior issues, do they see that kid as bad? Or are you smart enough to figure out that there's probably something more behind that child's behavior? Let me give you an example. So there's a kid that I know I've worked with a lot of these kind of kids, but I'll give you a fairly recent example. There's a kid that I know that when he goes to school, he will behave poorly, so poorly that the teachers make his family pick him up from school. And he will, to the point he will scream bloody murder. He will run out of the classroom. He will swear. He will do all these things, and he will get to go home. And that's ultimately what he wants to do. Now, is that kid inherently bad? Or are the people around him failing him? And I'm talking adults, okay? So number one, the teachers are rewarding him for acting poorly. So he's getting his way and he gets to go home. So they're not doing their job. And this is an aside, but when a kid is on an IEP, the school is mandated to provide services to manage that behavior to the point where that kid, no matter what tantrum he throws, he has to stay in school and they're going to deal with that. Otherwise, he's not getting educated very well, is he? Or if he's not appropriate for that setting, that school should make a referral to a day treatment school that will be able to handle those excelled behaviors, those higher level behaviors, okay? So it's the adults failing this kid on that point, right? Okay. Now back to, is the kid just bad, or are the adults failing him? Well, if he has no history of trauma, abuse, neglect, physical abuse, emotional or sexual abuse, then if you can rule all of those things out, that he's not reacting to adults that are triggering him, if you can rule all of that out, then you can assume that this kid is acting a certain sort of way because he's getting his way. All he has to do is holler and people will back off and they will give him his way, okay? So, but first, anyone around that kid, working with that kid, working in a school setting with that kid, in a psychological setting, in a mental health setting, even in probation, or law enforcement, they need to determine, is this kid just a pain in the ass, and is he spoiled and entitled and never heard the word no very much? Or is it more likely, very much probably more likely, that that kid has a history of trauma, abuse, neglect, physical, emotional, or sexual abuse, okay? And once you figure that out, if you can figure out and understand this kid's history, this is an example, you can probably deal with that kid much better. So instead of, if you thought, see, many people I've worked with over the years assume a kid is just a bad kid or a spoiled brat, when nothing is further from the truth. this kid has a history of protecting himself. So these behavior problems that these kids have sometimes are protective mechanisms. They're not done out of meanness. They're not done out of disobedience. They're not done out of just blatantly disrespect. It's done out of, it's a protective mechanism, because there may be a lot of people in his life, including adults around him, that have not protected him. So he does it his way, which is he doesn't want anybody around him. He doesn't want anybody touching him. He's going to be loud. He's going to be disobedient. He's going to be, hollering, maybe being a class clown, maybe being disruptive, all these kind of sort of things, right? So people need to get really a good social worker who has a lot of experience in the field. Hands-on experience is going to be able to determine that probably pretty dang quick, okay? And they know how to assess, and they know how to get down to brass tacks and figure out their social history, their family history. Is there any history of, like I said, different kinds of abuse or neglect? And there's someone to really rely on, because they have good insight into what could help that kid. Now, being an adult that butts heads with a kid like that and doesn't build any rapport or any empathetic bond with that kid is not going to work. That kid is not going to trust you, and they're going to butt heads, and they're going to act out worse, right? So a smart practitioner will figure out that they need to get on that kid's level, not figuratively speaking, but you know what I mean, like chill out and listen and build a bridge with that kid and understand that kid, and let that kid say whatever and ask some guided questions to get down to brass tacks on what is happening with this kid. Then that social worker or whoever who's working hands-on with the kid should be enlightening the rest of the staff or other providers in that area as to how best to deal with that young man, okay? So if you can rule out trauma and history of neglect and abuse and all that jazz, and let's say this kid is just a stinker and a really high IQ, really brilliant kid who gets his way with a lot of things, well, then you can, if the first incidents where someone is abused, traumatized, neglected, you need to slowly build rapport with them and show that you're trustworthy. And not only that you're trustworthy, but that when they pull the shizzle that they pull, because those kids are really smart kids too, and they're gonna test, you are the adult that is immovable. Like, you're like, oh, that's a good try, that's pretty cute, but no, you're not getting your way, okay? So, and you're safe space for them, all right? And studies show that it takes one adult, one sane, rational, attentive, kind, but immovable adult that can bond with a kid, and that can change that kid's entire trajectory of life. And that one adult, that if they're sane, rational, and they're appropriate, they have good boundaries, they have good therapeutic skills, they can provide good services, that will, it can literally change a kid that's struggling. It can change their life for the better. They end up going to college, they end up having kids of their own, they end up being great parents, they end up doing beautifully, okay? It just took one adult to sit and understand them, okay? That's very important. Now, when it comes to another kid that's entitled, who just simply is supremely brilliant, you usually don't get the bad behaviors with the ones that aren't supremely brilliant. If they're not abused or neglected, they're just manipulative, okay? So kind of the same thing, structure. Okay, the kids with the trauma need structure, for sure. Not horrible structure, but calm, kind, steady, immovable structure. They need to know what to expect, where they're going. They need to know if they screw up, this is the consequence. And it's the same thing. It's just the same thing, okay? Now, entitled kids are kind of the same thing, but you don't have to, there's not as much tiptoeing with this other kind of kid. In fact, so think of it as the military. Do you think that in the military, which I have a son that's was in the military, and he was an Army Ranger with the 75th Ranger Regiment, and do you think that his drill sergeant sat down and built a bond and sat there and looked in his eyes and listened to things forever and ever? No, they didn't. So think about that for an entitled person. And an entitled person really needs a good boot camp, okay? Not, necessarily destructive or mean or any such thing, but kind of a boot camp to get their ducks in a row and to realize they're not that special. And no, you don't get to get your way with everything in life, okay? So limits and boundaries and being immovable with an entitled, self-centered stinker of a person or kid is important too. Now, are both of those kids, a traumatized kid versus an entitled kid, are either one better than the other? No. Are either one of those less helpable than the other? No. Are either one of those to be thrown away and be called a kid, oh, this kid's just a jerk, or this kid's just a brat, or this kid is just hopeless, or this kid is... I've heard all of that stuff out of lots of people's mouths when it comes to my adjacent agencies I've worked with over the years. They're like, oh, that's a throwaway kid. That kid's never going to amount to nothing. Da, 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 da. Just judgy, horrific, crappy, terrible statements about children. You can't, about children, which you'll see me look at people and go, really? So that makes me, being the stubborn one that I am, quite happy when I have shaped some behaviors with really difficult kids over the years, and I have a lot of history with that. And when they turn out and they do just great, I love it when they run into the adjacent agency. We're gonna say, no, I won't say names, but when they run into those people and those people are like, son of a bitch, they turned out really great. Yeah, of course they can. They just needed an adult that didn't judge them and treat them like crap to believe in them and have some patience and kindness and decency and really invest and realize that for every kid you invest in a good way, it changes society for the better and moves humanity forward. So, for example, early childhood dollars. So this is for our government policymakers. For every dollar you invest in early childhood education, we're talking pre-K, little people kind of stuff, you get $12 back in your budget because you don't have to house somebody that's in the justice system or is on probation or is, on welfare or something like that. Remember that. It's probably higher now, but that was a statistic, like, I don't even know, like 10 years ago or something. I imagine it's probably higher return on investment now. So remember, every dollar you invest for little people, making the programs good, making them have full tummies with their school lunches, making sure that they have good preschool and Head Start teachers and good activities and structure, because they may not be getting that at home, by the way. Every dollar you invest will give you back at least $12 that you can put in your budget to spend on other stuff you need to spend on, or hopefully your budget, balancing the budget so we're in the surplus, not the negative. But anyway, that's another topic. So listen, don't ever say a kid is a throwaway kid, because they can turn out to be the greatest being that this world has ever seen, because they know what it's like to be treated poorly. They know what it's like to be neglected. They know what it's like to be traumatized, abused, and turn their life around because some very cool person took the time to listen and invest and not make them feel more stressed, learned what their triggers were, had patience and kindness for them. I will give a shout out to a principal that I had. His name is Mr. Martin, great guy. I owe him a lot, okay? He was a hell of a great principal who knew how to handle traumatized kids. He was really good. So that's why I pay things forward. I have a great understanding for kids like this and how wonderful, successful, amazing, and beautiful they turn out to be as adults, and they end up to be the great, they end up to be really great parents, okay? Now, just so stop judging people that say, oh, that kid down there, he has issues, okay? You, first of all, don't speak on that. We don't speak on other people's kids, number one. Number two, be that person that's a mentor and a light to that kid, because sometimes kids' favorite place in life is being at school. You know why? Because no one's hitting them there. No one's yelling at them there. They're getting fed better food probably, and they can relax, and doing homework and being around peers and being in that structured setting is doing wonders for these kids, okay? And then they go home and it's a whole different environment for them, all right? And it doesn't mean necessarily that someone goes home and they're getting beat. Maybe they had too much responsibility growing up. Maybe they had, maybe they were neglected. Maybe they were traumatized. Maybe they did have physical, other kind of abuse, whatever. But no one's a throwaway. And I'm talking adults too. Everybody's redeemable, okay? When you're an adult though, you have more of a choice and you have more of a responsibility to pick yourself up and dust yourself off and kick yourself in the pants and get moving and keep it pushing, no matter what happens to you. But kids are different. We must protect our children. We must protect our kids in the community, kids at school, littles, all this stuff. And we need to really think about whatever curriculum. This is a topic that came up. It was a hot topic on some Facebook group or whatever from around where I'm from here. And it was talking about, talking about concepts that are way beyond what little ones can absorb. So some of that advanced education on, we're going to, whatever it is, okay? Talking about people's origins or whatever they're choosing, whatever, okay? Just know that those concepts, in my opinion, are way too advanced for little people. They need to be, little ones can't even grasp how their own bodies work, how their own things work. So when we're throwing in other people's different choices, this, that, and the other thing, they're so little they can't grasp those concepts. So what we need to do is we need to keep those kids as innocent as possible, because the world is corrupting enough. All right, so let's not bombard our littles with advanced concepts that even adults don't really understand. Okay, so that's another thing. We need to keep our little people innocent as much as possible. That means, like, this is another off topic, but like the bus, okay? I was grateful I got to drive my kids to and from school for a number of years, because lots of weird stuff happens on the bus, man. There should be, this is my idea, there needs to be an adult proctor that rides, like a supervisor that, there's a bus driver, but then there's an adult it rides along on the bus rides and stuff, because there's a lot of unsupervised yucky stuff that can happen on a bus, okay? So that's just an aside. But back to, people are redeemable. People can change. Adults can change if they choose to change, which, if they know better, they can do better. And some of them still don't want to change. So just that one, you just kind of got to let go, okay? You say, that person's not changing. You just have to say, well, good luck to you. God bless you, but peace out, Girl Scout, okay? And you have to move on from that. But you can't save everybody. But little people, it is our responsibility for kids 18 and under to protect them from themselves sometimes, to protect them from adults that have bad motives, to protect them from other kids, to give them wisdom and patience and teach them kindness, and to not let kids bully other kids. And just remember, the kid that might be acting out needs some understanding, not your punitive, judgmental, awful, disrespectful, put-downy attitudes, okay? So just remember that. Be patient. You don't know what other people are going through. People can look a certain way and not look like their struggle. And so people can be very tough on people when they have no idea what their home life is like. when they have no idea what their life is like. Abuse crosses all for children that are abused. You can see that dad driving a Range Rover, and that doesn't mean that the dad that's driving a Range Rover is less abusive. This is just a terrible example, but is less abusive than the person that drives an old Dodge Dart. Do you see what I'm saying? The abuse crosses all socioeconomic lines. It crosses all classes. It crosses everything. It's just that the people that have a couple more bucks in their pocket can hide it better, okay? Just don't be so judgy of people, and be more patient with kids with behavior issues, because most of the time it is definitely due to some kind of stuff you don't know about. And here's the kicker. There are these untrained adults that I've worked with that said, well, the kid didn't come to school and tell me that. Here's a little secret. Kids can be horrifically mistreated at home. Do you think that they're really going to go to school and feel like, okay, their own caregivers neglect or mistreat them horrifically? Do you think these kids trust you as the adults in that school? Where the kid goes to school? Do you think that those kids are going to automatically go, oh gee, there's a safe adult there that I need to tell all of this stuff that's happening at home to? Are you serious? Are you kidding me? You need to build rapport with the kid, and even then, that kid's probably not going to be saying anything. You're going to have to get real observant in knowing the kids you teach and knowing the kids you provide services to, because you'll be able to recognize different behaviors from baseline. Or you're going to be able to recognize behaviors that this kid's not going to ever volunteer. So, and no, we don't put words in people's mouths and all that kind of shit. What I'm saying is that you, as somebody that works in this field, you get good at identifying things, okay? And then you know what appropriate and soft, patient questions to ask, okay? And then when they feel comfortable and safe with you, because you are understanding, empathetic, you've built rapport, but you're immovable, meaning the kid can't push you around because they're gonna try, and they're gonna try to pull some stuff, but you're immovable. You're like, yeah, nice try, kid, that's funny. So that kid will come forward with things as things go, but you ask the right open-ended questions. This is a long training here. But no, kids don't just go, oh, gee, my parent just slugged me in the temple. I'm going to go to school now and tell my teacher. No, they're terrified. You think that they're going to go to school and willingly tell on their parent? Are you slow? They're not going to do that. You know why? Because that staff member is going to go to social services, and that social services is going to call their parent, and their parent's going to get on that kid even worse and be like, oh yeah, you said that? You told on? You know, see what I'm saying? You have to make sure that that kid is safe to come out with the stuff in the first place. Then you got to make sure you're working with the professionals that work with these kids and make sure that that kid is going to be safe once that kid divulges what he divulges. It's a whole team effort. You got to have someone with a brain running the whole crew on this one. And I'm an old case manager, old social worker, did that, had teams of people working with kids and families. You got to have someone that knows what they're doing, okay? And someone that's a go-getter and understands things. Otherwise, you can blow that whole family system to crap. But anyway, just don't treat kids poorly, okay? And also, teachers, defer to your mental health providers in your school. As much, you still build rapport with the kid, you can still be a safe space for the kid, you can still be, don't be on their case and being mean to them and stuff like that because you're irritated with their behaviors. Defer to your mental health staff in that school or your guidance staff. And those are my dogs. Anyway, you're going to be able to make a big difference in children's lives if you start understanding and be a trauma-informed teacher, a trauma-informed provider, a trauma-informed cop, a trauma-informed, these dogs are nuts, honestly, a trauma-informed professional, trauma-informed probation, trauma-informed court, you name it, okay? So anyway, shh. Little dogs, I tell you, are, anyway, they're really cute though. So, I don't know, lost my train of thought because of these little dogs. But anyway, so my assignment for you is go out and make the world a better place. Go do something kind for somebody without looking for a pat on the back for it or looking for, cake and a parade, okay? Just go do something. Do something that's kind for somebody else, all right? And then the other thing is if no one has told you today, I will. You are special, you are wonderful, you are loved, and I love you, and God loves you.